Hey guys, so today's video is about the Ace family. Subscribe, hit that bell, like, comment for engagement, social media description, anything else you mean to find. Let's get into it. So I actually filmed a few videos about the Ace family. I'm gonna give a quick recap here just so you can like get into it, you know, just get into it. So Ace family. They started the boxing event. I said the boxing event was just ruined everything. Like, nothing's been the same since the TikTokers versus YouTubers boxing event. But basically, Austin McBroom, in some way, was like he was like an investor, a founder. He was basically heavily involved in the creation of TikTokers versus YouTubers, like the event. And it's weird to be the main event while also putting on the event, because you're obviously a little bit biased and you're going to do things that purely benefit you and no one else. But he offered a lot of money. He said they were going to make like $500 million and they made nothing close to that. I think they made like a few million. They had like 130,000 pay-per-view streams when they thought they'd have millions. I know Deji and Gib actually got paid before the event even took place, because that's what they negotiated in their contracts, but no one else got paid. And Bryce Hall recently went on a live stream with Aiden Ross, I believe, and basically said that he doesn't think he's going to get his $5 million that he was promised. I know Nate Wyatt and Taylor Holder are both suing Austin and his company that put on the event. LiveX Live is also suing Austin McBroom. I'm going to say Ace family because it kind of affects all of them. And all of this is now coming to like a big finale because he's being sued for upwards of $100 million. Then there's, on top of that, recently Sloan actually did a video where he talked about a social media company that essentially helps you make fake engagement. Like they help you get fake engagement on your content and on like your different posts on different social media platforms, aka comments and likes on YouTube, to make it look like you're not getting hate when you really are, just to balance out the likes to dislikes and make some of the top comments look good, give you more views on your live streams on Instagram, that kind of thing, to make you look more popular. And apparently they've been paying them $5,000 a month every month for them to be doing this engagement stuff for them, and they haven't paid them in a long time, and there are a lot of like invoices that haven't been paid off. So that company is now like, do we sue, do we not sue? I think the guy behind it said that he wants to sue, added on top of already the lawsuits. Then there was that thing about Austin McBroom renting out exotic cars for the fight and then not paying the company. So he was supposed to pay them part in actual money and then part in engagement on Instagram, like a promotion, and he did none of that. Actually, the company spoke out. A few people went against them. I think it was like Keemstar said that they were like lying or something because they deleted all their posts and they deleted their accounts. So he was like, oh, they must be lying. But then they recently actually spoke to Sloan and said that they deleted all of their stuff because Austin kept on attacking them behind the scenes and threatening them with legal action and threatening to basically take them down. And they're like a small company. They can't really afford to lose everything over this stuff without the guarantee of winning. So they just kind of like complied and took everything down. But that doesn't make the story any less true. He offered them money and posts and he did none of that. Like, he didn't do any of it. So clearly, like, he owes them money at the very least. So all of this is going down. And then recently we find out from Sloan, actually, he's been doing a lot of research into the Ace family, which is much appreciated. He's looking through all the documents, and because I'm in the UK, American documents tend to like not really make sense. So I'm glad that there's someone from America that's like going through them and going through like the process with us, because it's confusing. But essentially they have a house. They bought 2 mansions in LA, joined them up into one big compound, which is basically just a huge mansion worth double, essentially, because if they bought like 2 mansions for $5 million, joined them together, that's like a $10 million house now. So they had a mortgage on both, and then I believe in the comments you guys told me that they actually joined the mortgage into one mortgage. So they ended up mortgaging 2 and then merging the mortgage into one mortgage. So it's almost as if it's one house, but it's not. It's 2 houses made into one house. You know, with joining up 2 mansions in LA, you're gonna get a lot of costs. Things that we don't have in the UK, like huge property taxes in LA. It's a huge mortgage. It's a lot of stuff to pay off, right? And obviously you get your loans from third-party companies, whether that's banks or some kind of brokers, to help you get a loan on these houses. They obviously owe money to a company, and if they don't pay off said company, that company then owns the house. Like, technically the company owns the house until you pay it off. Like, that's not your house, you're slowly paying off the house, and until you pay it off completely, that house is not yours. It belongs to the bank or a company that lent you the money. And actually this was a business expense, so they bought the house from like their corporate accounts rather than personal accounts. So the house isn't owned by Austin and Catherine, it is owned by the Ace family LTD situation going on. So they built it as almost like a business property. So they got like a specialty mortgage on it, which was for corporate properties. Besides all of the points that I just made, they have not been paying off their mortgage and they have not been paying off their property taxes. I remember they got a essentially the house went under foreclosure on Zillow, and it said that it was being sold off sometime soon. And that then disappeared on Zillow for a little while. So people thought, oh, maybe it was just like a mistake on Zillow's part to like put that on there. And people started looking deep into it, and Sloan being one of the people looking deep into it. And he found some records that were basically just saying that their house is going under foreclosure and that they owe about $9 million in stuff they just didn't pay off. Like, they just didn't pay their mortgage, essentially, allegedly. So he found these documents, and Catherine and Austin start going really heavy against Sloan without actually ever naming him. So they'll post stuff on their Instagram stories. Like, I remember Austin posted on his Instagram stories being like, people are lying about me losing my house. If I was moving out, I'd let you guys know. Like, you guys would be the first to know if we were moving out. We're fine. Catherine then went on her Snapchat story, and someone asked a question. You can ask questions on Snapchat. They were like, hey, is your house going under foreclosure? Like, people are saying you're losing your home. And she was like, no, why would people make up these lies? Like, we built our own house. Why would we be losing it? And it's like, she's saying all this because she's got a very young audience, doesn't really understand how mortgages work. You didn't build the house from scratch. Because if it was like, oh, they bought land in cash and then built a house on it without any loans or debt, like just purely in cash, then yeah, your house can't be taken away from you most of the time. I'm pretty sure if you go bankrupt or if you owe people money, they can take your house and sell it to recoup some costs. Like, if you owe them bank money for different things or like taxes, they could technically sell your house. That's a whole different conversation. What I'm saying is, if you didn't get a mortgage out, then of course that's your house. But they took a mortgage out on 2 different houses and then built it technically into one house, but like, you still got a mortgage on it. Like, just because you started like doing construction on the house doesn't mean you built the house. You just bought a house and then started doing construction on it. So you still owe money. She basically said a bunch of nothing and everything in one Snapchat story. Like, there was nothing going on. So Sloan has been getting like a lot of shit from them, quite honestly. And then recently he found more documents, basically saying their house is gonna, they received like the first warning, which was like the foreclosure stuff, like, hey, if you don't pay this off, we're taking the house. Then they got another one, which was like, hey, you have not been paying off your mortgage and you haven't paid us any debt. And like, you just basically ignore the last letter we sent you. Your house is going to be put on auction in a bit. Like, get ready, actually. And they just apparently did nothing about it because their house recently was put on auction. So I remember Death Noodles went to the first date, which was beginning of October, and they actually said in that date that the auction was being moved forward about 2 to 3 weeks, and that happened now, literally a few days ago. And a few people went, and yeah, no one bought the house because it's a huge house and it's really expensive. Like, I feel like unless you're literally a billionaire, a multi-millionaire maybe, this house makes no sense, which makes me think that they've been living way above their means. Like I said this, I feel like they've made so much money. Like, they get millions of views per video on like the low end and tens of millions on the high end. Like, they're family friendly. They probably have a really good CPM. They sell a lot of merch. They do a lot of stuff. Like, they make so much money, which makes me think that they're living way above their means if they're actually managing to somehow go bankrupt. Go bankrupt in like they're not, before I get sued, they're not going bankrupt as in like they're losing their house, allegedly. Like, you really have to be living way above your means to somehow manage to not pay off the mortgage when you're making that much money. Like, they're making so much money that they should easily be able to pay this house off, and they're just not paying it off, which makes me think they're spending too much. They've got all of these sports cars, they've got all of this designer stuff that they're buying. Like, yeah, they can probably afford it, but if you're making, let's say, $1 million a month and you're spending $1 million a month, you're living above your means because you have no savings. Like, you have nothing to rely on. If you're making $1 million a month, you should probably have savings because you don't need to spend that much money. So I feel like they've been living way above their means. The house they built is for 5 people, 3 of them being tiny humans that don't need much space. To have a house that huge, like, I saw their house. It's, even their first few houses were disgustingly huge. This one, it looks like you basically took all of their previous houses to put it into one and then made it just one house. Like, it's empty. There's an echo going around in the house. So I feel like they just lived way above their means, and now no one really wants to buy the house because apparently it's in like a really weird area for that kind of a house. 2, really expensive. Property tax is going to be really expensive. Mortgage repayments are going to be really expensive. It's huge. Like, unless you have a fleet of people working for you, like, you really don't need that much space, and there are not many people that have families huge enough to warrant that much space, and there's not many people that have that much money to warrant that kind of an amount of money. I think it's being sold for like 9 or 10 million. So the house didn't get sold on the auction, and which means that now the company that gave them the money, they gave them the loan for the money, now officially owns the house back. Like, they can take the house back and do whatever they want with it, which means that the Ace family is technically being evicted from their house, which I'm just wondering how they're going to hide the fact that they're being evicted. Like, they literally just said, we're not moving out. If we're moving out, we'd let you guys know. But they're going to have to move out at some point. So how are you going to hide that? Like, how are we going to hide that from the audience when at some point you're going to have to take all your belongings and leave? Because I'm laughing because I'm uncomfortable. They've got kids. Like, they're being so irresponsible with their money. Like, the fact that you make so much money and you still manage to somehow not pay off loans. Because if that was me, right, and I was like, oh, I've been living above my means for a while, I now can't pay off my house. I'd sell everything. Everything I don't need, Birkin handbags, Cartier bracelets with the diamonds on them, the sports cars in front of your house. I'd sell off everything just so I can pay this house off. Or, even better idea, sell the house and buy something smaller. I'd sell the house, recoup some of the costs, and build myself something smaller that I can actually manage to afford. And actually, if we rewind even more, if I was in their position, I would have never built this huge house. It makes no sense. There's 5 of them, 2 full adults, 3 children, living in a house that's made for like 50 people. Like, it's giving me very much Dynasty Carrington vibes. Like, you do not have 50 people working for you. Please just get something that's more manageable. Quite clearly this was too much and they just bit more than they could chew, and that's what happens. So those are the updates. They're actually officially being evicted, allegedly, and we're gonna have to just wait and see what's happening. I feel like no one is gloating, no one is happy for them because they've literally got kids, and this just shows how irresponsible they are and how immature they are to put their kids, not in danger, that sounds very dramatic, but like to put their kids in that kind of a situation is odd when you have the means to not put your kids in that situation. If you guys enjoyed today's video, give it a thumbs up, comment down below anything, comment down below, and subscribe to those videos every time something happens. So hit that bell, you'll be notified when that's happening. Social media links in the description. I'll see you in my next one. Bye guys.